This podcast is a production of the Brickyard Network. To find out more about our lineup of ceramic podcasts, visit brickyardnetwork.org.
This episode is sponsored by Monkey Stuff. Monkey Stuff makes things for makers. We're inspired every day by the craft and creativity of makers, and design and manufacture tools and accessories to try to make your making life a bit more delightful. Our products are designed in California, by makers and for makers, and manufactured in the USA. Check out our line of pottery accessories and tools at monkeystuff.com. Follow us on Instagram to see what we're up to in our studios, and keep on making great things.
Hey, this is Erin with Cornell Studio Supply located in Dayton, Ohio, exclusive distributor of Jen Allen templates and Put a Lid on It t-shirts. We are a proud sponsor of this episode and the Brickyard Network. Find all your pottery and ceramic sculpture needs, including the largest stock of GR pottery forms at cornellstudiosupply.com. At Cornell Studio Supply, we are owned and operated for potters, by potters.
Hello, my name is Kathy King, and welcome to the For Flux Sake podcast. I'm coming to you from the Harvard Ceramics program in our fair city, Allston, Massachusetts. I'm here with Rose and Matt Katz of the world-famous Ceramic Materials Workshop, and they are ready to answer your burning questions about clay and glaze. Well, hello, Matt and Rose.
Hey, Kathy.
Hey, Kathy.
It is so good to see you.
It is a lovely day today, and we get to talk about ceramics.
I know everything is good. But, before we start these sessions,
everything is good, but
before we start our sessions, we do get some notes, and I spied something that we may need to put our good shoes on because we're heading to Materials Corner, I believe.
Materials Corner. Oh, wait. Is this Materials Corner or is this Materials Death? I don't know.
Well, I don't know what you're gonna say, so
Yeah.
I'm scared.
This isn't death. This is sick materials. Not so healthy. So this is the news at the moment. This is not a bad one, a tragic one, but this is definitely something that is out there. And we've got bad frits.
Oh no.
This is verified. This is confirmed. But there is a bad frit 3134 batch out there. So those of you 3134, pretty common frit especially for cone 6 people. A lot of people use 3134. Now this is not all 3134. So first of all, don't go and freak out. But it has been confirmed. It has been confirmed by reputable sources that a specific batch number of 3134, which is ready, get your pens and pencils ready, batch number 2587211-01 is in fact bad, and it has been recalled. Now their batch sizes, I think, are about 5,000 pounds. So that's actually not a ton when it's distributed throughout the country or even the world. Students all over the world use this frit. But what we have been told is that the company is reporting that the frits are going opaque at low temperature, which is a very interesting behavior.
Yeah.
Because what I suspect is going on is that, again, this is my speculation, that they screwed up the batch and added in too much silica. Because when you take a frit like 3134, which has very low alumina in it, and you increase the silica content, you're going to force the glaze into phase separation. And those of you who've been around for a while know that phase separation is when glazes go opaque and kind of streaky. That's what makes floating blues, and chun glazes is that phase separation effect. And it's really easy to do. You literally take a glaze with pretty low alumina and you add in more silica. And that I have been told that the frit composition is pretty basic, that it's basically just whiting and borax, which is sodium borate, and some silica. That's literally all that they make the frit out of. So you're going to screw up one of those. Adding in silica is the one most likely to make it go opaque.
This is not a formula. Do not go making your own.
No, don't go making your own frits. Don't make your own frits. But what's interesting is that the company reports that the problem is only with quote unquote low temperature glazes. Why I suspect that is because at low temperature, a glaze composition is basically just frit and then a little bit of clay. At high temperature, it's part of the rest of the composition. So you've got feldspar and whiting and kaolin and silica in there. And so it only ends up being about 20%. So that excess silica gets diluted by all the other materials at high temperature, and you don't really notice it. So if you're using this for cone 6, it probably is not that big of a deal. But if you're using it for low temperature glazes, they may be going opaque. Either way, as we understand, there is a recall, so you can take it back and to your supplier, and you should be able to get a new batch. And once again, just to repeat, so this is the Ferro. We should even say what people know is the Ferrofrit. The company, I don't even know if we've announced it. They did actually change. They were bought out a couple of years ago and changed their name. They're now Vibrance Technologies.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh.
Kathy, you really want to laugh? It's Vibrance with a Z on the end.
Of course it is.
Yes.
Of course it is.
Yeah. So what used to be known as Ferro is Vibrance Technologies. And it is one specific batch of only Frit 3134, and that is lot number 2587211-01. So if you have that one, take it back, get a new batch. The rest should be fine, but that one you might be getting some opacity if you weren't expecting it.
I don't think I've ever had a recall of materials before.
It wouldn't be that common. Because if they're a mined material, change is part of the game. Like you just
I've sent rail cars back of materials when I was working in industry because it wasn't up to our standards, but never a recall. I don't think I've ever had a recall.
Now, let's say I have my bag of Frit 3134, right here with me, just asking for a friend.
You carry it.
Where am I out on the couch together, watching your stories?
Where am I looking for that number?
Down on the bottom of the bag, there's 3 lines that say material, batch number, and then something else. I forget what the other one is.
I forget too, but yeah, she's right. And they it's one of those things where it looks like it's been printed in the manufacturing versus the rest of the bag, which is probably silk screen printed or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that wasn't as terrifying as some of the others that we've done. So I'm feeling pretty good.
I'll depress you another time, Kathy. I mean, I can make you sad.
I count on it. Matt, I count on it. But
every time we record, that makes Kathy sad. How have I wasted my life?
Never. But we did get something different this week. We have, it's not a question, but we have someone who wrote in who's commenting on a question that was answered last week. So we're going to listen to this from Sarah from New Jersey, and she is commenting on the question that had to do with terracotta flower pots.
Hi guys, Monster from New Jersey here. I wanted to chime in on the discussion about flower pots from a few weeks ago. Terracotta pots are really great for certain types of plants because the pot dries out faster. Being porous, it allows evaporation, so plants like cactuses and succulents do much better in terracotta pots versus a glazed or plastic pot, which is going to retain moisture, which would be good for like tropical plants. Or in the case of, say, carnivorous plants, you want it to be fully glazed because you don't want the minerals leaching into the substrate that carnivorous plants live in. Hope this helps answer that question, exclamation point. And yes, I also agree that sometimes pots are not glazed on the inside so that the roots can kind of anchor to the pot as well, especially in bonsai, period. Anyway, that's it. Bye!
Oh man, now I got to repot my cactuses because they're
I
in a
know.
plastic pot, and my orchids are in a terracotta pot. I got to switch them around now. Jeez,
Goodness,
I have to admit, I've got an aloe plant behind me in a fully glazed pot that has been thriving for 30 years.
for like 30 years there.
I've treated it so badly in so many ways, and that abuse just becomes more evident.
Oh, well, that was really helpful, though. Because
It was.
we can't answer everything, every aspect. We need our people to come out of the woodwork and tell us how it is. I love it. So thank you so much, Sarah.
To that flip side, I just saw a "What is it" post on the internet where someone was taking a picture of their neighbor's garden, and they had buried terracotta jars in their garden, and someone was asking why they had done it.
Oh, yeah.
And the common response is that it was a watering system. That they were so they were unglazed on both sides, and that they would fill the pitchers with water, and that they would slowly distribute the water into the soil in the garden.
Yeah, and keep moisture in there. Yeah, I've seen that before.
Today's episode is brought to you by the Rosenfield Collection of Functional Ceramic Art. The collection exists as an online source for research and inspiration, featuring photos of thousands of objects made by over 800 artists. The images are high quality and can be used with no permission required. To find out more, visit www.rosenfieldcollection.com.
Glazes don't make sense, but that's why Rose and I are here at ceramicmaterialsworkshop.com, helping translate glazes for real ceramicists like you. So join us for our brand new class starting October 1st. It's for everyone from beginners to masters. We clear up all the mysteries of glazes to make them work for you. Join us at ceramicmaterialsworkshop.com for making glazes make sense.
Well, let's get to it. Our first official question is coming to us from Chris from Carroll's, Washington. And Chris has a question about stroke and coat.
Hi, Kathy, Matt, and Rose. This is Chris Shaw from the beautiful little community of Carroll's, Washington, just north of Vancouver, Washington. My daughter and I are making pottery to sell at the Portland, Oregon Saturday market, and it has been a wonderful, wonderful experience. The question I have for you is we've been using the Mako Stroke and Coat Wonder glazes for doing detail work because they don't run and they don't mix and they work at multiple different temperatures. But we just got a whole bunch of different chemicals for making glazes and wanted to find out what was special about these Mako Wonder glazes that lets them work so well at multiple different temperatures. We fired it everywhere from 05 to cone 6, and they always work perfect. I wasn't quite sure how we could do that or how they manage that, and would love to get some information from you how to make these super flexible glazes with the ingredients that we have. Thanks so much. We love your show.
Wait, what was the end there? Does she want to make a version of this?
They're looking to make their own glazes, but they want to know about the stroke and coat. What makes it so versatile?
Oh, it's so much easier opening a jar, though. I'm
It
exhausted.
is, but it's more money when you open a jar.
Oh, of course. No, this is a great question. I love this. I mean, so yeah, stroke and coats, I think were if I'm not mistaken, like the first product that like everyone knew the range of it, whereas it took over a course of years that people started testing Amico or other manufacturers at different temperatures and saying like, oh, okay, so at electric blue turns into almost like a glaze at cone 6.
therein really lies the question of sort of what are they actually doing at the different temperatures. Some of it comes down to some pretty basic stuff like the colors. The colors, I would assume, again, I don't, and that's the first thing we should. We know nothing about the chemistry of these particular materials, but that the colors are all stain. First of all, and stains, if you're not familiar, are manufactured colors. They are going to be stable at a huge range of temperatures. In fact, stains will basically be the same color up until cone 8, basically, which is 2300 Fahrenheit, 1260 Celsius. Because stains, what they do is that they're not interacting in the glass. They're not chemically part of the glass. They are just floating in the glass. So color-wise, they literally don't care.
Well, I assume he's talking about the clear one because he says he's putting it over things and it doesn't mix.
No. Well, hold on. This is why this is so
Okay.
confusing. They said wonder glaze. I thought the question was about underglazes.
No, wonder glaze.
No, they pitch it as a wonder glaze, but if you fire it really low, it almost looks like an underglaze.
So what they are is, because we use this at the studio a lot, they're essentially marketed like a reliable underglaze in that it will work and not run at any temperature. Probably not at cone 10, but from low fire up to cone 6. But the Wonder Glaze with the W in front of it is just their marketing. Everyone else knows them as stroke and coat.
Oh, okay.
Are these underglazes or are these glazes?
They're glazes, but Mako markets them like an underglaze, and they call them wonder glazes.
Oh my God.
So the market that Mako gets with these is the paint-a-pot market. Mm-hmm. So we use them in studio ceramics, but every like Color Me Mine, like all of that type of thing, they all use stroke and coats because they're super versatile.
Oh, so it's an underfired glaze at low temperature.
Well, this is the question, is why does it work at 04? Because in our studio, we do paint a pot at 04, and it works great at 04.
Is it glossy at 04?
Yep, fully melted glaze at 04. But at cone 6, it does not run badly. It does blur and start to blend a little bit, but it does not run like you would think it would run.
Well, thank you, producer Ben. Listeners, Matt is just so down the rabbit hole, looking this
He's
up
done.
Online.
Goodbye, Matt. Okay, quick.
So
Kathy,
we're going to continue on,
answer.
Rose.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, quick, before he comes back.
Well, I remember, I mean, they've been around for a long time. I remember I first learned in the 90s. There's a wonderful artist, Matt Nolan, New York City artist, who would put this other layer on top of a cone 6 glaze surface. And, not like a China paint or an overglaze enamel, but like you're able to get that extra layer. So that's a really exciting part about them.
They do have some good names. I mean, I have
Oh my God. Yeah. And the names, read some more.
Like, yeah. Cheeky Pinky. Yeah.
I thought that was your nickname for Matt.
Oh, it is now.
All right. That's enough buzz marketing for Mako. Okay, I got it. And no, I see what's going on. And Rose actually knows the answer because we were studying this just this summer. So these are pretty basic glazes, and it's an interesting / cheeky marketing standpoint as to what they're saying. What they're really doing is, like, as producer Ben was saying, these glazes are definitely getting overfired. And there is a question of whether overfiring is acceptable from a chemical standpoint. And that is pretty common. What it really is, and this is the part that Rose and I, that you forgot that we were working on, is when you take a glaze that is a brushing glaze, that application is actually insanely thin, but also very, very dense. And so you end up with these glazes that are going to have a decent coat. But what you don't get is a layer thickness that is so high that it's affected by viscosity and gravity, which is why glazes tend to run, because glazes only run for two reasons. One, they're too thick, and two, they're overfired. And so if the glaze is overfired but is still thin, it's not going to run because it literally doesn't have the gravitational force to move it. So looking at this and looking at some of the SDSs, it's just listing silica and kaolin. It mentions zinc. They're pretty cagey about Fritz. But what I would say is that it's a glaze that's just barely melted at its base temperature. And so that's okay enough. But then because the coatings, because literally stroke and coat, the brushing of them ends up, and actually I literally have a textile right here where this is this glaze that Rose and I were working on. We'll put a picture of this on the blog, that actually the color looks wrong. This is actually a much brighter color when you dip it, because when you dip it, you get a much thicker coating, so you get a much greater concentration of that same colorant. But when you brush it on, it's such a thin coating, you get a glass, that's just fine. But it definitely is not the same density of application. So I think they're pulling an interesting trick where, yeah, they are just taking a glaze. It's probably barely melted at that cone 06. And then 06 to cone 6 is not as big of a gap as many people may believe it to be, although it's the whole low temperature, high temperature jump, right? Cone 06 is 1,000 degrees Celsius and whatever that is Fahrenheit. And then cone 5 is 1186. So it's 186 degrees C, which is a big jump. But if the glaze is pretty thin and it doesn't run, then yeah, it'll hold in place. But I would say that it goes with the classic thing of it's just barely melted at cone 06. And by the time you get to cone 5 or 6, it is over melted, but thin enough to not really make it like a tragedy of running. But as Ben says, it still definitely runs as you get to those higher temperatures.
Oh, but making your own.
Oh yeah, making your own is not as easy as, yeah. So they have a lot of additives they add. So it's pretty much CMC that's added. Probably it might be added in the powder form or liquid form, you think?
It depends on how they're processing the glaze. But yeah, the carboxymethylcellulose is the common brushing agent. So like I said, that's what makes it so smooth and so smooth. Strokeable. God, this is disgusting. I don't feel clean anymore after going through all
I know. I think we should move on to the next question.
Yes, let's move on. Let's go to the next one.
Kathy's going to need a break for her vapors.
I know. I'm having my vapors. All right, Chris, thank you again. So let's move on to Fiona from New Zealand. How exciting. Fiona has a question about adding ceramic stains in a clay body.
Hi everyone, it's Fiona from New Zealand. I have a question about adding ceramic stains to clay bodies. I am interested to know why it is that some ceramic stains are deemed fit for adding to clay bodies and some are not. There's something on the Mason website where they kind of list about, they give a list of the ones that you can add or can't add to a clay body. So my question is, what determines whether a stain that I'm using is suitable for adding to a clay body? For example, I have a pink that's a chrome tin pink, and there's another one that's an alumina based pink. One is okay for bodies and one is not. I just wonder, how do we determine what's okay to add to the clay body? For example, when we take bone dry trimmings and slake it down with water, that's how I'm adding it. Is there a percentage, where we get too high that we start to compromise the performance of the clay body? I would really love to know your thoughts. Thanks.
Good question.
I know. I mean, the question goes to you. You're the one who used to color clay bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rose. That's so accusatory.
Yeah, really. Oh.
I once caught Rose coloring clay bodies in the dark, y'all, and she looked guilty, and she immediately put the containers down, and it's like, I wasn't doing anything.
Well, I mean, we used industrial stains, but so they were just made by different companies than Mason. But I mean, we used stains that went into glazes. It depends on what color we were trying to achieve. And it ranged between, like, our really intense colors were like 12% stain and like down to like 1% or so. Our margin errors were pretty big. So percent for us was really low because we're working in these big batches. But I mean, you could I mean, we used a ton of different stains. We used illuminate blues, greens, yellows, like praseodymium yellows. We used all of it, and it was just a matter of what color you were trying to achieve. With the slip, though, we were mixing them dry, so it's a whole different process, because dry pressing is a whole different process. But if you're mixing it wet, I mean, they say up to 10%, don't they, Matt, on some of the
the Mason body stains specifically say 5 to 7%. I've done a bunch of stain testing recently, and I've actually found that 10% is a bit high. I think most Mason stains are better at a 7 to 8%.
One of the tricks you always talk about is if you're trying to go for like a black, start with a dark body already instead of going from white to black, because you're always going to get gray. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a real color theory challenge, and that's part of why we should go back and say what they're talking about is body stains. And if you do go to Mason's website, under stains, they have a specific section for body stains, which are meant to be them. Okay, everybody ready?
Yeah, it's only like a handful of them.
I have the list. Okay.
You do.
So yeah, 6020 manganese alumina pink, 6069 dark coral, 6268 sea green, 6300 mazarine, 6319 lavender, 6434 brick yellow, and 6485 titanium yellow. Those are the ones, those 7 are what are listed as body stains, meaning they are meant for a clay body. And they say 5 to 7%. Now, we'll post this on our Patreon so people can see this. But we were testing a bunch of stains this year, and we decided that we were just going to test the body stains too. And what we'll post is the same glaze, exactly the same glaze base. One of them using the pink body stain, the magnesium alumina body stain, the 6020, and then exactly the same glaze using alpine pink, 6001, which is a glaze stain. And the manganese alumina pink is dry, under fired, added in the same percentage to the same glaze. Why? That's what the body stains are. They are meant to be highly concentrated and unaffected by glass melt. In fact, contradicting glass melt, because that will dilute the power of the color. And so that's what the body stains are, that they are highly refractory, so that they reflect well in a clay body, but not in a glaze, because they'll underfire them.
Right,
Don't put them in a glaze. But as Rose said, you can use regular stains in a clay body. That is okay. They may not be as robust. You may need higher percentages. They may fade a little bit, but you can use any stain in a clay body. That part is okay. But the body stains are going to be better. Just make sure to not put body stains in a glaze. We tried it. I can tell you, they will not melt no matter how much you throw at.
What is it? That mazarine, because there's a mazarine for glaze and there's a mazarine for clay bodies, and you don't want to mix those two up, because one will be underfired and one will.
I screwed up. Believe it or not, I am human, everybody, and I wrote a. Shh! Don't tell Kathy. She won't let me live it down.
I'm here for it.
I wrote a whole bunch of glaze tests that and this is, I'll point a slight finger at Mason. They have 2 different mazarines. One is 6300, which is the body stain, and one is 6388, which is the glaze stain, also called mazarine. Well, when we were writing these glaze tests, we wrote them with 6300, and they came out looking like hot garbage because we meant to use 6388.
Yeah.
So I am human. You know, that's that. I accept my place.
Yep. You get to sleep with those textiles.
They're so scratchy and hard.
All right. Well, I learned something today. So, okay. So we have one more question we're going to get to. And this one is from Bill in Richmond, California. And Bill would like the underglazes to have a more consistent feel.
Hello, Kathy, Matt, and Rose. This is Bill from Richmond, California. I'm calling in regards to an episode that you had Meredith host on. I believe that was episode 96. She was talking about her glaze is feeling different over different underglazes. And I'm having that same issue. So I'm using the same type of underglaze that was mentioned in that episode, and also the same manufacturer using a satin matte glaze. So I bisque once, and I apply my underglazes and bisque again, and then I apply a thin layer of the satin matte glaze. I use a spray gun, and so it's a very consistent coat. And I do get that issue where some underglazes, or the glaze over some underglazes, feels rough or thin, and some of the underglazes feel smooth and like what I want. So the more saturated, darker colors like dark green, an intense red, black, they all feel fine, and they have a nice sheen from this glaze. The colors that are less saturated, like yellows, peach, straw, these types of things, feel like the glaze is thin or rough. If the glaze feels rough, like it wasn't enough glaze. The issue with applying more glaze is that this particular this matte glaze will get cloudy or foggy if the glaze is too thick. So I'm careful about not putting on too much. Yet still having these strange effects even after a bisque fire of certain underglaze colors. I was wondering if you had any further advice for me as to how I could try to get a more consistent feeling with my satin matte glaze. Thank you.
Well, I mean, I just avoid those colors.
Well, that was my first thought. But I guess my question is, what temperature is he bisquing to? Is he bisquing too high for certain colors?
He already got to the thing we talk about with Meredith, of that the first trick is to make sure to bisque on your underglazes, because the real issue is, and I have still yet to be able to derive whether they are using different underglaze recipes or whether it is just inherently different particle packing with the different stains that they add to them. And that's what you were saying on the previous question of like, yeah, sometimes you want a dark underglaze, you need to use a darker materials to get a base for that. But the short answer is absorption, is that the glaze application is based purely in absorption. And that because the clay body is like a sponge and it draws water in, and the underglazes have a different absorption rate than the clay bodies. And like I said, we were doing brushing tests this summer, and we saw this all the time, where we would see different materials, on the clay body it'd be super thick, and on the underglazes it would be super thin. And even when you bisque it, you will still get those variations, because although you're burning out the CMC and whatever else may be in there, it still will have a different absorption rate. And so it really is tricky. I think that part of the answer, if you are doing the bisquing, Bill, is that it comes down to that glaze application. Going back to the first question and talking about, how brushing glazes work, the reason why brushing as a medium tends to work better is that most brushing glazes are not using that suction for their application, that the brushing medium allows you to put down a more even layer of glaze because it's not sucking the water. And that's what the brushing mediums do, is that they actually hold the water in the glaze rather than having the bisqueware draw it out. And so you can put down a much more even coating than drawing. I'm slightly concerned about the glaze that you're putting on top and talking about the changes it's having if it's getting a little bit thick. That, not knowing what that glaze is, it sort of makes me think that that glaze isn't doing you any favors. I know it's one you like, but that doesn't mean that necessarily it's a great glaze at the end of the day for what it's trying to do. And so that might be a question, but it really may be that you need to make a brushing glaze to put on top, or possibly, if you're spraying, you can add CMC to spraying glazes, and it can get you a somewhat better coating. But I think it's
we used to add CMC to our spray glaze too.
Yeah, it'll make it more self-leveling, because like I said, what happens is the CMC keeps the bisqueware from absorbing water, so then it can still flow and self-level. That's the whole trick with the brushing glazes, is that they self-level very effectively because they counteract the absorption of them. So that may be the thing to look at, but I would look at the water content of the glaze that you're applying. I would look at how you're applying and possibly adding in some CMC to that to try to get a more consistent coating. But I would probably go with more thinner layers probably at the end of the day to try to get a better coating over those underglazes.
Well, best of luck, Bill. Best of luck. So I'm so proud of us. We got through 3 questions. Yay! We are awesome. Awesome. If you disagree with that, just keep it to yourself, people. All right,
you
Matt
don't need
and Rose.
to tell us how we're not awesome.
I know. I got people for that. All right, y'all.
I got self-esteem for that.
Yeah. Until we meet again, farewell.
Hi, Kathy.
Au revoir.
Well, folks, that's it for this week's episode of For Flux Sake. I'd like to thank the listeners who submitted questions this week. And if you want your question answered on the show, shoot us an email at ForFluxSakePodcast@gmail.com. So join us next time, and when in your studio, remember what Rose always says.
Always remember to test, test, test. This is a test of the emergency glaze system. Beep. Hey, For Flux Sake friends, wish you could hang with us a little more each month? Well, you can come join us at our For Flux Sake fan club on Patreon. You'll get discounts on our new merch, chances to chat with us during live hangouts, and extra episodes just for you. Find us at patreon.com/ForFluxSakePodcast. We'd love to see you there.